Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ Riesinger. Below zero temperatures plus the wind chill leading to some dangerous conditions across Montana tonight. It's also causing some school closing and delays for tomorrow. We'll get to that in just a minute.
But first, from east to west, much of Montana buried under several inches of snow, and it's not done yet here in Billings and across the eastern part of the state. Whether you're walking, driving, or flying, this winter storm is making all forms of travel dangerous.
Oh, take a look at this on Highway 89 near Great Falls. This semi hauling hay caught fire this afternoon after crashing into a snowplow. Flames first spread from the engine to the cab, then back to the load of hay. Fortunately, no injuries were reported.
And as we move further west, people in the mining city spent most of the day digging through heavy snowfall. So much snow and more on the way that the Butte School District has canceled classes for Tuesday over safety concerns.
And an absolute nightmare driving in the Bitterroot Valley today. Many schools across the western region closed today and most canceled school for tomorrow as well. Snow was falling about 1 to 2 inches per hour in the Missoula area. In fact, drivers are urged to stay off the roads until conditions improve.
State and local authorities responding to dozens of slide-offs all across the state tonight. Bob McGuire tracking the snow and cold. How are things looking here in our region, Bob?
It's still very chilly in the Billings area. One of the things in our favor is that even though we're getting snow, it's getting a very fine, like sugar-like granules type of snow because it's so cold. So these are our current temperatures. Here in Billings, it is 6 below zero right now. Elsewhere around the state, you see everybody east of the divide below zero and basically single digits below zero. Now, our wind chill factor in Billings, look at that. Feels like 24 below zero in Billings right now. Feels like 30 below at Livingston. Havre feels like maybe 29 degrees below zero. And as you'll see here, our temperatures tonight, we had to change our forecast. We're going to dip down now to about 10 below zero. We are expecting more snow moving in later tonight, but now here's the good news. The rest of the week, we are actually going to be warming up above zero for highs, 22 on Thursday, but then back to 1 or 2 degrees over the weekend. We'll have more in your forecast in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Now, this weather also closing down schools across the region. At this hour, Huntley Project, Shepherd, and Levina schools are closed tomorrow, as well as Mount Olive Lutheran Preschool and Grade School and Pioneer Elementary.
Other schools will delay the start of classes tomorrow. For all the latest updates, you can go to ktvq.com to check out school closures and delays in your area.
Well, it's already been one of the coldest Februaries on record, and the winter weather just keeps coming.
Q2's Samantha Sullivan has more on some of the issues people were fighting out there today.
Another round of winter weather making a Monday even more miserable. Inches of new snow, below freezing temperatures, and a frigid wind chill made for poor travel conditions all around Billings. Multiple school closures and delays were announced due to the weather, and everyone else just fighting to get wherever they needed to go. To make matters worse, a power outage in the Heights left nearly 2,000 customers without power this morning, including some Heights area schools. School District 2 actually postponing the start of school for students in the Heights, but the power was restored around 7:30 and school was able to start on time. Meanwhile, a water main break left some without water this morning. The water was actually turned off for those in the area of 17th Street and Avenue B late last night. Crews were working into the afternoon on repairs. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's any end in sight. More winter storms are on their way. In Billings, Samantha Sullivan, MTN News.
Now, snow is also piling up in and around our homes after this fourth snowstorm of the season, which means Billings plow crews will start Tuesday's residential plowing in Zone 4. As you can see, that's the south side of Billings in blue there.
The city will be watching the conditions, but anticipates that First Mark will begin plowing in Area 4 around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. From there, they will work on Zone 3, then 2, then 1, then back to the 6th zone.
Now, to check out what zone you live in and to get updates, you can visit the Billings Public Works Facebook page.
In a unanimous decision tonight, Billings School District 2 board members agreed to take a levy vote to the voters.
All 7 trustees and Superintendent Greg Upham will place a high school operational levy on the ballot this May. The last high school levy passed was back in 2007.
Q2's Zoe Zandora was at that meeting. Tells us more now. Zoe?
Yeah, Russ and Jeanelle, the board all agreed it's time for some change. Some saying this is something that injects a lot of much needed resources into the high school community. As you said, it's been more than a decade since District 2 high schools have seen any levy passed. And tonight, with the unanimous vote, the levy was approved for May's election. Board members voicing their opinion tonight, saying it's time. One saying really it's past time and that we really need these opportunities for high school students. Greg Upham also mentioned at the meeting that students' history and textbooks, the most recent, date back to 2007. If approved in May, what does that mean? Well, owners of homes worth $200,000 would see about a $10 increase in property taxes over the year. Now, Upham says that if passed, this will allow the district to keep pace with other high schools in our neighboring cities. And they will also use some of the money for additional human resources specific to career pathways. Russ?
All right. Thank you, Zoe. Well, tonight, Bozeman School Board trustees have picked the new name of the second high school in Bozeman. They are going with West Slope High School. The board went with this option because Montana State Fish is the West Slope cutthroat trout. The mascot and the colors will be decided on March 11th.
In other news tonight, a Democratic state legislator has been identified as the subject of a sexual harassment complaint last year. And lawmakers now admit that complaint played a role in the legislature devising its new anti-harassment policy. MTN's chief political reporter Mike Dennison has more on this story.
Earlier this month, legislative leaders working on a new anti-harassment policy revealed that something previously undisclosed was a key factor in getting it passed. A sexual harassment claim involving two legislators. The claim happened more than a year ago, and late last week, the Associated Press reported the complaint was made against Democratic State Representative Jonathan Windyboy of Box Elder. Windyboy declined to comment Monday to MTN News, although he indicated he may respond later. Also last week, the legislature released a 5-page report on the complaint reportedly filed by a female legislator against Windyboy. The March 2018 report, completed by Great Falls attorney Jean Foray, was heavily redacted, at the request of those involved who asserted their privacy rights. But the document did reveal that the target of the complaint sent several texts to the female legislator in late 2017, saying, "You are gorgeous as always," and that "you're always a wonderful sight for my sore eyes." Another text said, "Well, just know between you and me, you can step all over me and there is no boundaries." Foray said comments in the text were inappropriate and that legislative leadership should take action. The investigation had been requested by legislative leadership, which, according to the Associated Press, considered removing Windyboy from his chairmanship of the State Tribal Relations Committee. He resigned the chairmanship last April, citing work-related commitments. House Speaker Greg Hertz told MTN Monday he wasn't involved in the incident since he was not Speaker at the time and that no further action is planned. House Democratic leadership released a statement last week saying they are shocked and disappointed to learn that one of their members harassed another person. They called the behavior completely unacceptable and said they're still gathering information on the report. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Thanks, Mike. Now, the new anti-harassment policy enacted a week ago allows for confidential reporting and investigation of claims and penalties for offenders.
A Montana Navy SEAL and Purple Heart recipient is lucky to be alive after a plane he was in crashed into a Florida home. Tim Sheehy was in the aircraft as a student pilot and survived that crash with minor injuries. Unfortunately, the flight instructor who was with him was killed when that small plane lost power, then plummeted into the home. Everyone in the home survived the crash, but a 17-year-old girl was in the bedroom into which the plane crashed and was pinned and trapped until the emergency crews arrived. Now, in an email to statewide radio host Aaron Flint, she stated, "The neighborhood folks deserve credit for their selfless acts of bravery immediately after the crash. With a fire imminent, they were courageous in their acts. It was a rough day, but could have been much worse. I'm just thankful there weren't more people in the home."
President Trump is flying to Hanoi, Vietnam for a second sit-down summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Now, the president says the goal of the summit is to work towards the denuclearization of North Korea. Natalie Brand reports.
Expansion. Just over a year ago, President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un were hurling insults at each other. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself. Then they broke the ice at their first summit meeting 8 months ago in Singapore.
We have developed a very special bond.
And now President Trump and Kim are preparing for a second summit in Vietnam. Kim arrived in Hanoi by train, and before leaving Monday, President Trump described his immediate and ultimate goals.
I think we'll have a very tremendous summit. We want denuclearization, and I think he'll have a country that will set a lot of records for speed in terms of an economy.
After last year's Singapore summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un produced few concrete results, some worry about the concessions the president might be willing to make.
We're all rooting for diplomacy to succeed, but the president can't be too naive or too eager to reach a deal that gives him that photo op again, but doesn't achieve the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
It's a point President Trump has been working hard to dispute.
We've given up nothing. The sanctions are on, everything's on.
It's been over a year since North Korea last tested weapons, but observers point to evidence the country is still making nuclear fuel and working on its weapons program. That's despite a pledge of peace and a nuclear-free Korean peninsula after last year's talks. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
The president is expected to land in Hanoi Tuesday morning for the high-stakes summit.
Coming up on tonight's 10 o'clock news, the first summit to address clergy abuse in the Catholic Church has some survivors questioning its intent. We'll hear from them.
Plus, could the golden ticket to more than $1 billion be buried in a landfill somewhere? Last year's Mega Millions jackpot remains unclaimed.
And in sports, Scott shows us how tonight's top 2 battle ends between the Grizz and Northern Colorado.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.